this time of despair, it's not that we shouldn't feel the loss and feel the pain, but now is the time to double down, to really realize our greatest values and start laying the foundations for the kind of world that we'd like to live in. And everybody has a role in that.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host, Vanessa Rose, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform. The winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and the video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year, and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Jamie Metzl is a technology and healthcare futurist, geopolitical expert, novelist, founder, and chair at One Shared World, and senior fellow of the Atlantic Council. He's a board member of the International Center for Transitional Justice and was also appointed to the World Health Organization Expert Advisory Committee on Human Genome Editing. Welcome, Jamie. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
So, Jamie, we'd really like to know your story and about how you came to be the founder of One Shared World.
Sure. So early this year, in the very, very early days of the pandemic, I was scheduled to give a talk for Singularity University, which is a kind of a university of the future, on whether the tools of the genetics revolution were a match for the pandemic. My book, Hacking Darwin, Genetic Engineering and the Future of Humanity, had just come out. I'm deeply involved in the world of science and technology and imagining how those incredibly important trends and revolutions are going to fundamentally transform our lives. But that morning I woke up and I realized that wasn't the most important talk, that at least that I needed to give. That what I realized very early on in the pandemic is that the biggest problem that we were all facing isn't just the pandemic. It's the global collective action problem. That as our species has globalized, our problems have become more global and more collective, like climate change, pandemics, proliferating weapons of mass destruction, global systemic poverty and inequality. But our means of responding to them have remained primarily national with a thin overlay of international. And as long as that mismatch existed, we were going, even if we solved the pandemic, we were going to keep jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire because every one of these problems would go unsolved. And so if it's a pandemic now, next time it could be a nuclear detonation, next time it could be a collapse of our ocean ecosystem, so many different things. So we have to solve that problem. So I gave a talk saying that here's what we need to do. And we need to create a global constituency and a globally empowered community. Just you're in India, it's the kind of the same principle of what Gandhi and others identified, that there's a problem. We can't just say, hey, that problem needs to be solved. We need to build an empowered constituency that can demand that the problem be solved. And then in the case in India, that's what was the connection between those ideas, building a movement, and then independence. We need to do the exact same thing on the international level. We need to identify the problem, which is that our greatest common challenges aren't being addressed by our existing institutions. We need to build a movement, and we need to do it creatively, just like Gandhi did, but on a global level. And then with the power of that movement, we need to demand that every institution in the world, every business, every civil society organization, every political party, every government, and every international institution changes its mission, not entirely and partly to recognize that they also have an obligation to our common humanity and our common needs. So that talk went viral. I stayed up all night. A couple of nights later, I drafted a Declaration of Interdependence, put that on my website, jamiemetzl.com. That went viral. I called a global meeting. That our first meeting, we had about 130 people from 25 countries. Everybody agreed this is what we need to do. We organized ourselves into 8 working groups. Everybody worked day and night for 35 days, and on May 6th, we launched One Shared World. We're now in 110 countries. Our declaration has been translated into 18 languages, including for Indian languages, Hindi, English, and Tibetan. Um, and we're growing very, very rapidly. But the key mission is to solve this global collective action problem.
That's so interesting. Yeah, it was all worth it in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jamie, in the next 5 years, you could possibly see significant changes in AI. So, how do you think advancement in artificial intelligence will impact the healthcare sector?
It will fundamentally transform our healthcare system. The human biology is so complex. Its complexity is beyond the capacity of our brains alone to understand it. But that's why we have diagnostic tools that can allow us to better understand complexity. And that's what AI is going to do. It's going to be able to take in all kinds of inputs, including our genetic code, but also our broader systems biology, our electronic health records and medical and life history, and put those things together. And it's not that we're going to see AI doctors, but it is going to mean that a human doctor must be accompanied by an AI agent, or else it's just kind of malpractice, right? It's certainly substandard. And we're going to move, because of these tools, from our world of generalized healthcare based on population averages to precision healthcare based on each person's individual biology. And then after we have everybody on Earth mostly sequenced and we build these massive data sets, we'll move from precision healthcare to predictive healthcare, health and life, because we'll have so much information that we'll be able to make informed predictions about how people's lives will play out, how disease risks may be manifest. And that's going to change our healthcare model from treating symptoms to prevention. I think that's very positive and healthy.
Yeah, but since technology is advancing so rapidly, how do you think leaders can or should rewire their organization structure to be prepared and face this?
It's essential. And the basic question that we have to ask is, what can humans do better than machines? And in those areas, we need to really be great at creativity, at empathy, at relationships, at connectivity. But if there are industries or parts of people's industries where we have people doing what AI agents and machines can do better, those businesses will be at a massive disadvantage. So we have to figure out what humans do best and double down on that, and figure out what machines and AI agents can do better than humans, and let those machines do that. And I traveled around North Korea, and in my 9 days traveling around, I maybe saw 2 or 3 tractors. I didn't see very many farm animals. I saw a lot of people working in the fields. And in India, you have that as well. But those are all people who don't need to be working in the fields. We've already invented the technology so that a few people can farm a big area. But societies, if as is the case in India, if inefficiency is the employment mechanism, then your economy is inevitably stuck in underdevelopment forever. And we have to do is figure out what are roles that humans must play, and let humans play that role. That's where advancement happens. We can't have humans doing things that machines do better. We need to find even better, and a lot of this work will be much more meaningful for people. We need to find ways for people to be employed that expands the frontier.
Yeah, so we can't get rid of any, but just make the best of both worlds.
We can't get rid of anyone. What we need to do is not waste people's time and energy doing jobs that machines can do better. Let's educate and train those people so that they can do jobs that humans can do better, because that is where the greatest value added will be for our societies.
So, what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs trying to embrace the future?
So the great hockey player Wayne Gretzky said, "Don't skate to where the hockey puck is, skate to where it will be." Our world is changing so rapidly that if you just start building your career based on the world where it is today, you may not be likely to succeed. What we all have to do is anticipate where the world is heading and then set our sights there. So everybody has to think like a science fiction writer, because our world increasingly feels like science fiction.
That's so true. So, Jamie, do you have any last sound bites you'd like to leave our audience with?
Sure. So these are very rough times. They're rough times here in the United States. They're rough times in India. They are rough times everywhere. And we need to recognize that, and we need to accept that. But we can't be fatalists, because life always has ups and downs and twists and turns. And at the greatest bottom, you know that the top will inevitably come. Things will start swinging up. And when things are going great, you know that they're eventually going to swing down. And then that up and down is part of what it means to be a human being. So at this time of despair, it's not that we shouldn't feel the loss and feel the pain, but now is the time to double down, to really realize our greatest values and start laying the foundations for the kind of world that we'd like to live in. And everybody has a role in that.
That's some wonderful advice, Jamie. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for sharing your time and insights with us.
Okay, awesome, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Take care. Alrighty, bye-bye.